Okay, so I'm Megan Myers. I've homeschooled my kiddos for 2 years. We're going into our 3rd year. We actually started out as COVID homeschoolers. We just didn't like all the regulations and different things that were going on, but then once we got into it and I realized how much of a blessing it really is, we're not going back. We're going to stay homeschooling. And
Sure. Tanya Wilbon, I have homeschooled 11 years. I have 2 graduates, one 3 years ago and one this last year. Pennsylvania allows you to graduate with a parent-led diploma, and there's also a county, Erie County, Pennsylvania, that will allow you to get a state diploma if you follow certain track. So we did that with both, so both of my kids have 2 diplomas. Doesn't mean a darn thing, but shouldn't give me any trouble if they wanted to go to college, but in this climate, that's probably not happening. But I'm a traditional homeschooler, no COVID homeschooler, no online homeschooler. I'm a old school, get out the books, maybe you do a few computer things, pick all the curriculum yourself, homeschool.
All right, so first we're going to talk about homeschool defined. Like, what is it? What is homeschooling? Homeschool is educating your child at home, so you'll be taking the lead in your child's education. It's not really public school at home. That's something that's kind of important to keep in the back of your mind, so that way you're not constantly comparing yourself to what's going on in public schools. Home education is specifically tailored to your child rather than according to standardized guidelines. It's because of this individualized learning that home education is effective. That in mind, like I said, it's quite important to just kind of try to keep from comparing like what you're doing to what maybe teachers would be doing in school. So I'd like to touch on a few common myths about home education. By far, the most common myth I hear that homeschool children are weird and unsocialized. You come across that a lot. To that, I say that your children can have more socialization homeschooling by interacting with children of many different ages, family, neighbors, the librarian, and then many more situations on a regular basis. You might have to be more intentional about socializing, like setting up play dates, or signing them up for extracurriculars or going to co-ops. But because of that, they will end up being around a wider variety of types of people, and they'll actually have a chance to pick up on a much broader and more sophisticated vocabulary.
Maybe can I comment?
Yeah, go ahead.
So what would be the definition too of, weird, unsocialized kids? In today's climate, with everything being about diversity, equity, and inclusion, we could decide that, you thinking that I'm weird as a homeschooler, that's not very diverse or inclusive. What is weird? What is the standard? We have a problem that there is no standard in the world today. There is no black and white. There's absolutely no right and wrong. Our founding fathers said that our Constitution was for a moral and religious people, which I'm not here to preach to you or anything, but the point is we as parents are to train our children so that then choices can be made and you come from a standard. That standard no longer exists in the public realm. And I don't mean just the public school realm, I mean the public realm, period. It's up to us as parents, always was up to us, but now it's more up to us because it's failing everywhere else. So who says what's weird? You might think my kids are weird. That's okay with me. I got no problem with that.
All right, so the next myth that I'd like to debunk is that only stay-at-home parents can homeschool. So like, if you're working or maybe, both parents work, you're not going to be able to homeschool because somebody needs to be home to be able to homeschool. So actually, speaking from experience, both Tanya and I work, and so do our husbands, and we homeschool. You don't have to, your schedule doesn't have to line up with a public school schedule. So you kind of just, you make it work, fit it in when you can. Like for me, I run my own business. I'll go to work for a few hours in the morning, we'll do some school during the day, and then I go back to work for a few hours in the evening. That's what works for us.
But for me, I don't think my kids can handle that, so I've worked nights ever since I've had children. So my husband and I have worked for Walmart 29 to 32 years, sorry, shouldn't have said that in public. Anyway, I went to like 4 to 9 in the pharmacy at that time. So I have worked nights the entire time I've had children, 21 years, so that my kids never had daycare. If they ever had a gap, it was with my mother, and then I always had done school before I had gone into work, because my kids just didn't seem to, I didn't think I could get them back. That works great for Megan. It didn't seem like it was gonna work great for me, whether I could get them back to that. So therefore, I work in the evening and we do school in the day. That doesn't mean I've never done a math lesson at night or something like that, but that's not the standard.
Right, so just being open to being flexible with your schedule and when you do school is super important if you need to work. There's also like support groups out there for working moms and working parents, so there's a lot of different ways to do it. If you find that it's something that you need to do, just reach out to other parents that are doing it and have been through it and toss some ideas around. So there's one more huge myth that I'd like to debunk, and that's that your child won't be able to get into college if they're home educated. A lot of people think that homeschoolers won't get accepted into college for whatever reason that is. The fact of the matter is that many colleges actually seek out homeschool students because they tend to be more self-directed and disciplined, have better time management skills, and have a cultivated desire for learning. On average, homeschool students score higher on the SAT and the ACT, have a higher GPA in college, and have an 8% higher graduation rate. I've actually even known parents that have, their high school student dual enrolled, so sometimes they might be taking college classes while they're still in high school. So it's, that's definitely a myth, not anything that you need to worry about.
I want to say that it does also depend upon the parent. So if you are taking this on, I've always realized that my kids from birth till forever, really, they are my responsibility. Different things as they get older, obviously. Maybe it's a phone call when they're 40, but once I had those children, I took that responsibility as a God-given responsibility. It's not somebody else's. So in that same regard, that may not be the case. My kids, none of them have taken the SAT. I have 2 grandkids, never took an SAT. We only did what we had to when it came to testing. Was that because I thought my children were stupid? No. It was because I thought that one of them would have done really great, but she didn't care. And the other about the SAT itself. One of them just doesn't learn that way, so probably wouldn't have tested. It doesn't matter. If they're not going to college, none of that matters. So if they want to go to college, they have what they need, but if they decide they want to go a little later, then they want to go, so therefore they will pull themselves up by their bootstraps. It's not for me just to kick them out the door at 18, go to college, that's what you're required to do, which is what the world would say is the norm. I am definitely not the norm. I have a 21, 18-year-old living home. If they live in, I don't have a basement, but if they live in my basement at 35, they'll have their own job, be paying their own bills. But, the way the world is right now, I'm not here to be like doom and gloom, but we are never going back to what it was 2 years ago. Never. If you haven't figured out yet how bad things are, I'm sorry, but they're really pretty bad. Whether it be in school or in college or in the medical field, the lies that are being told, we need to be awake and taking responsibility for our own lives and stuff. And so, that will be in different ways. So I have no idea what my kids will do, but that is absolutely true. Those statistics, most schools like it. But if you would come into a problem, she'll talk about HSLDA later, and that'll be an asset.
Alright, so we're going to talk about some pros and cons of homeschooling. We'll start first with the challenges that are common to face and some ideas of how to overcome them. Parents often worry that they won't have any time to themselves. The thing is that we're always available for what's important to us. We always prioritize when something's important to us. So, if you know that having some time to yourself or having some time together as a married couple is important and you're worried about the kids being home all the time and you not being able to get that time, you have to prioritize it and make it important. So another issue that could arise is if you have a child that's struggling in like a particular subject, whether it be like math or language arts or, you know, whatever it is. A lot of times parents might feel like, you know, I don't have a teaching degree, so I'm not equipped to help my child through this. There's so many different resources out there, so much support that's out there. I mean, there's, you know, you can hire a tutor, you can go online if you need to for extra help. You can, I mean, we've watched YouTube videos to help learn multiplication tables and different things like that. There's so much support and so much help out there that you can put your mind at ease when it comes to that. Do you have anything that you want to add there?
I would just say that, you know, don't think that we get stuck in, but it's not the way they would have done it at school. It doesn't really matter. I mean, are they learning the task? You know, that's really what matters, is are they learning the task? Now, will that possibly, you know, cause a problem later on if they go to college and they have learned a certain way? It is possible. But the thing is, you know, if your child has a learning gap or something that you're trying to fill, the main point is to fill that gap. It's not to fill the gap for 20 years from now. You know, the way that I look at things is God told me to homeschool, therefore he will fill the gaps. So that's my personal thing. And my kids have gaps. You know, I mean, that's just normal. But, you know, if you pull, what are our scores here? And, you know, I sat through the school board meeting, and our scores in everything are somewhere around 50. You know, the school scores, like where we range, we might be just a little over the state, but we're, now does that mean every kid is at 50? No, it's an average. But I have 3 kids, so maybe I have one that was up here, and one that was right here, and one that was right here, and my scores are at 50, which I don't think they are. But I mean, so who's to say, why can't I, you know, have that, but hopefully have better, because I've taught them something in a way that where that can't happen at school. Unless, let's say, they have an IEP or something like that, and then that, and I mean no disrespect, but it comes with a stigma, and it comes with a chain. If you want it off, it's very, as far as I understand, it's very difficult to get it off. Now, I'm speaking from other people's experience because I haven't been involved in public school in 30 years since I graduated. So my kids were in private school and they're homeschooled. My kids have never set foot in a public school. So the way I understand it is once you step, she's shaking her head. So I'm thinking that's probably, you know, once you say they need this, then they're locked into that for quite a while until you can get them to release them from it.
What's that stand for? The IEP?
Oh Lord, I don't even know what the acronym is.
Individualized education.
Yeah.
There we go.
And one thing I do want to throw in there, so if you have a student who is a special needs and has a learning disability, they might get an IEP. But the flip is true also. If you have a student who is an exceptional student, they will get an IEP also, if the parent wants that.
They actually term those GIEPs for gifted IEPs. You know, my experience is in a physical disability. My daughter's got the drawback that I have with that now is I would love to homeschool her, but she loses all of her supports. So, you know, to keep her speech and her hearing support and all the stuff that she needs to learn properly, you know, I feel like we can't help.
Okay, so I'm going to talk about some of my personal blessings that I see that come along with homeschooling. The biggest one that I'm thankful for is just the chance to get to spend more time with my children. Even though we kind of fell into homeschooling because of COVID, I've always just felt like being away from my kids all day while they were at school it was really hard on me. I felt like teachers were raising my children and that I never seen them because they get off the bus and then it's time to do homework and eat dinner and get ready for bed because they had to be up early the next day, and I just felt like I didn't get enough time with them. So that's my biggest blessing. And we've all, like, as a family, grown closer than ever to each other. Me with them, and then like my little boy and my little girl as brother and sister, they've grown closer from just, we're with each other all day, every day now, so naturally. I get more time to work on like character training with them rather than allowing the school and their peers to mold who they are as a person. And, you know, you don't have to worry about peer pressure, which, you know, is a big thing in school because they're home where they feel safe and confident in who they are. So that's awesome to me. They get more one-on-one attention, so like their learning can be customized to what they need. They might have different learning styles or just, you know, like my daughter likes to be active. I was talking to Tanya about this the other day. We might be reading or doing a lesson and she's sitting under a table or hanging off the couch or just, you know, whatever. And I don't care. As long as she's paying attention and we're getting the lessons done, that's enough for me. But there's a big chance that if she were in public school, like obviously that's not going to be acceptable and she couldn't just be herself. And then we also, you know, something that's personally important to me is that we get to ensure that our children will be raised with a Christian worldview. So, you know, things that kids are learning in school, for, as far as like science and history goes, those views are going to be much different than my views and our views as Christians. So that's important to me too.
So when I first started, when you first start homeschooling, I am going to get to the pros. But when you first start homeschooling, a lot of people have this idea of school at home. So you get the little desk, you know, and I had the 3 little desks and the little spots, and everybody was in their own little place, and yeah, that goes away really quick. First year, that's gone. So you're a rookie homeschooler for 3 years, so just prepare yourself. Homeschooling is not a short-term fix. It can be, but it shouldn't be. If you're going to homeschool, you need to be all in. Now, if you're all in for 2 years and then things completely change and you just can't do it, then obviously that's understandable. And of course, everybody's free to make their own choice. I'm just saying you need to be all in, not thinking when my kids are in high school or when my kid is in this or when my kid is in that. You know, it's kind of like getting into a marriage with a backdoor of divorce if he does the wrong thing. You know, you want to know you're planning to do that until, okay? My kids had little balls. They had exercise balls, and they would sit on the exercise ball. My son, up until he graduated, would get up and cook breakfast while I was doing read-alouds. He would feed himself and whatever while I was reading. What would happen in public school? They would want him on medication. And I knew that from the time that he came out in 1st grade, that that's what they would have wanted, is him to be on medication. And is he a immature 18-year-old now? He is. That just is him. He's a boy. He's just kind of immature. Hopefully that 25 brain development is not 27, 29, I don't know, but, you know, he's not on any medication, except something for a runny nose, and, you know, that's a win for me. The things that I mainly won, though, are there any little kids that I can't say this? So 3 kids, 15, 18, 21, no sex, no drugs, no alcohol, no partying, no swearing, no hanging out with the wrong crowd, none of that. You know, none of my kids have even kissed someone of the opposite sex. You know, my husband has given them the whole, and a lot of people say, how do you even know that? And I just do, because they're primarily either with me or at work, you know, so they don't do a lot of stuff out. They are very sheltered, I definitely, but my kids are also mixed. So my husband is black, and so therefore he has given them a lot of training as to things that you do and do not do, you know, about what a booger is, and that you do not marry one, you know. I can give you, you know, tips on that later if you like, but there are so many things that you skip out on when your kids are not. You know, my kids call the school bus purgatory. I'm sorry to any Catholics, I apologize. That's just always been our family joke. You know, I mean, there's just so many things that you miss out on, and it's wonderful. We do a lot of family traveling. We've been all over the place, Ireland, Mount Rushmore, all over the place, you know. So they learn history through us doing it. And that has been something that we've committed to. You know, even when we didn't have a lot of money, we went and saw things and did things and participated in things. You know, it's not just, you get up in the morning, you send them up on the bus, they get them back on the bus, you got to take them to a sporting event, you get them back on the thing, you know, you got to throw them on the snack. there's not any of that at my house, never has been, so.
So next we'll talk about how to get started, the options for homeschooling. First, you're going to have to decide what route you will choose to homeschool. In Pennsylvania, you can homeschool under the homeschool statute, which would be traditional homeschooling, where you're in full control of your child's education. To do this, you do have to meet some qualifications, such as having your GED or high school diploma, and you or any adult living in the home cannot have been charged with certain crimes. The next one would be homeschooling with a private tutor. I don't know too much about that, we've never done that, but I do know that the tutor must be certified by the state to teach in public schools in Pennsylvania. Or you can enroll your child in a satellite religious or accredited day school. So a satellite school is a school that provides extra support and resources to homeschooling families while still allowing you to home educate your child. All of these options have specific laws that pertain to them, and the laws can be found at hslda.com. We're members of HSLDA, I'm pretty sure Tanya is. I highly recommend it. It's like $12 a month, but they have lawyers all over the country in every single state that they'll have your back if you run into any problems, or even if you just need to call or email somebody because you have questions about the law, making sure that you're doing what you need to do. They're there for you, and they're awesome.
I always tell people that I've had HSLDA all along. I've never had to use it, thank God. I've never been audited or anything, but you know, I also facilitate Constitution classes, and I ask a lot of times, you know, if the police come to your front door, do you let them in? And so many people are like, well, yeah, I didn't do anything wrong. I'm like, absolutely not. You don't let them in your house at all. You know, and the reason is because if they don't have a warrant, they can see anything inside your home and make something of it. I'm a reader, and I have Mao's Red Book on my shelf because I wanted to see how much it pertained to what was going on in our culture. So, you know, the policeman comes in, Mao, like Chairman Mao, you know, millions of people died in the Cultural Revolution, if you guys aren't familiar. You know, somebody could think, oh, she's a communist, you know, and then they try to stir something up on you, which, you know, nowadays a communist isn't a big deal, but, you know, so you just don't. It doesn't matter if you've done something wrong. That was kind of my hesitation with the little camera over there, is it doesn't matter if you've done something wrong. If someone wants to, whatever they call it, dox you or whatever, they can. You know, if they find something that they want to use, you know, because the standards don't exist anymore. Everything is fluid. So therefore, if your standards are not what their standards are, they can decide that they're going to come after you. And so you don't want the police in your house unless they have warrants. And HSLDA, you would say, just a minute, like if they came to your house and said your children are truant, just a minute please while I call my lawyer.
Right. And I actually have used HSLDA a couple of times. It wasn't anything too major, but like we had a letter that was sent in the mail that was saying that we could only have our evaluations done by very specific group of people, and it wasn't accurate. So I just contacted HSLDA. They contacted the district. The district sent me a new letter saying that they were wrong. I mean,
that's usually what happens if you're in the right.
Yeah, and then there was one other time where my kiddos wanted to participate in after-school program, 21st Century. It's like a STEM-based science program that the schools do. And in Pennsylvania specifically, if your kiddos do want to go to extracurriculars, or like maybe they still want to be in band or different things like that, you do have a right to put them in those programs. I think our district maybe didn't know, or they weren't comfortable with it, so they turned us down. So then I contacted HSLDA. They contacted the school and said, you have to accept these kids. They opened the doors. So I mean, they're great. They have your back, and they're actually always really prompt with responding to anything, whether by phone or email as well. So
I think the moral of the story is always question. I mean, I think that we've already learned that over this last 2 years, you know, always question. It's because, you know, they tell you it's a law. No, it's not. You know, even if it was a mandate, that's not a law. You know, that hasn't gone through the legislature. That's not a law. You know, so you may or may not win, but the point is, you don't just go around willy-nilly doing whatever somebody says just because they said it. It's like, no, wait a minute, why? You know, can you tell me why? You know, and I know that I sound really cantankerous, and I'm sorry, Katie. I was gonna ask her, you know, to try and stand up for me every time I'm working. But, you know, it just,
I'm fine with it.
it's very, things nowadays, a lot of times it's just ignorance, and I don't mean that it's a nasty ignorance, it's just they don't know. But when they don't know, because they're in a position of authority, they get snotty right off.
Or they just assume.
They assume, then you say something, then they get snotty, then you're like, oh, wait a minute, you know? So they, you know, just because that's just that would be in these books here. That would be, you know, illegitimate authority, that would be a fallacy. Just because you have a little bit of, you know, a little bit of power, does in the school district or somewhere, does not mean you have any power over me if you're wrong, you know, if you're wrong. You know, I want to know what's the law. What am I absolutely supposed to do? And I'm not trying to break laws. I just want to do what the law says.
Right. And then I don't mean to scare anybody or anything like that, but it's suggesting that you have HSLDA on
I've
the
already
back,
done it, don't worry.
but I mean, honestly, I feel like even though Pennsylvania is considered like a highly regulated state as far as homeschool laws go, I feel like it's pretty easygoing and laid back.
I homeschooled in
I
Florida
really
for 4 years before I came up here. So Florida, I think, is like the next level down. 4 red states: Vermont, Massachusetts, New York, and Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania, I think it's just that you have to send them, that you have to do the affidavit every year. And as far as the evaluation, it's the same.
Yeah,
So
I mean, there's some
the
reporting that you
affidavit
have to
every
do,
year is
but
the
it's
only
not,
thing that maybe steps it up a little. It's
nothing
really
to
not.
worry about. No. All right, so let's see. After you decide what type of homeschooling you want to do, you're gonna have to withdraw your child from the district. But in order to do that, you would need a formal letter containing your name, your child's name, and your address. And in the letter, you should also tell them that you will instruct your child under the home education program and that you will file the notarized affidavit per the law.
Now, this is only if they've already been in public school, right, Megan? If they haven't been in school yet, then you just file your affidavit.
You know,
if they're just turning 6, you're just putting them in, file your affidavit.
Actually, when, I don't know if it's changed, but when I put mine in, we moved from Nebraska and they were 5 years old. So we did not homeschool in Nebraska, so, you know, formal homeschooling. It's when we got to Pennsylvania, and you do not have to.
They changed the law from 8 to 6 2 years ago.
They did,
Is that what
okay,
you're
I
talking
was about to
about?
say, I did not have to say what I was going to do until they were 3rd grade.
It was 8, but it is 6.
Okay, thank you for that
You're welcome.
clarification.
Okay. And then again, HSLDA, if you do wind up joining, you can go on there and they have all the paperwork and everything that you need. You can just print it out right from there. So the form that you can write just a letter to let them know that you're withdrawing. I like to go the more official route, I guess, and print stuff off because I know that HSLDA has everything. They've touched on everything that needs to be hit on. So you can print it out from there, or you can just write a letter. And then, do you want to? Well, I guess you. Next, you would need to file a notarized affidavit.
Yep, that's my name.
Can I add something to this, in a way of keeping track of what you need to do? Another really good source to check is Ask Pauline. You Google that, and it's, they'll give you the requirements, format it. I found it very helpful.
Have you used it recently? How
Uh,
recently have you used it?
well, just about maybe 2 years ago when
Okay. When I tried to use Ask Pauline last year, I was told that they're not like updating anything on the website anymore. So if homeschool laws change, which there have been a couple that have changed in Pennsylvania just in the past year, it might not be on there.
Well, that's another good thing to do, but at least they give you links to to where you can find the homeschooling laws. It also, for me, what was very helpful is that what did my children need to be doing legally in elementary school, and then they gave you kind of like, English, math, that kind of an outline to use.
I think I printed mine off of each separate day, or you might be able to go to the Pennsylvania Education site and find that as well. I have a printout of that at home, I didn't bring it, but it tells that you have to teach some of in these grades. There is a standard for that. So before I talk about the affidavit, I had just written a couple things I wanted to say. I've already gotten a little stretched out here, but. So, when in the course of human events it becomes necessary for one people to dissolve the political bands which have connected them with another, and to assume among the powers of the earth separate equal stations to which the law of nature and nature's God entitled them, a decent respect to the opinions of mankind requires that they should declare the cause which impelled them to the separation. The first thing we have to see is that our rights come from God. That's the first thing. The school does not have the right to your children. They're your rights. Whether you believe in God or not, then they're yours. They're not the school's rights. Your children were born to you. So we are our child's first teachers. Who taught them to talk, to walk, what their colors were. Then I would say, who taught them to bite or steal a cookie? That doesn't always have to be taught because human nature is sinful. It automatically happens. We have to teach our kids to be just and honorable. Public school or the government, which is what I would call a government school, that's the problem. It's not the public. It's government schools no longer have their foundation in the moral standards that the founding fathers attempted to establish. Now remember, we are human. There will always be injustice, but we as a nation have 233 years under the Constitution, 46 under the, I was thinking of July 4th Declaration. 233 years under our Constitution, with more people coming than going. The average constitution of other countries is 17 years. So we've had our Constitution for 233 years. That's American exceptionalism. That's why we are different as a country, even though they're trying to tell us we're not, and everything we've ever done is terrible. I'm pretty sure my husband's family were slaves. They have the name of whoever owns them, and we can't find much genealogy. He does not want any reparations. He wants to move on with his life. 233 years, when most other constitutions, 17 years is the average. So what would we have had? 15, 10, 12, 13 coups, overthrows? Can you imagine that in your lifetime, twice, everything changed, everything completely changed? My time, 3 times. This country was built on stern stuff. And it was built with people like this that were homeschooled. And they were homeschooled because there was nothing else. They left England for religious liberty, and for liberty period. They come here, and you had to teach your children. And then they intended for schooling to be local. The National Department of Education is unconstitutional. Federal Department of Education. Unconstitutional. Shame on Carter. He should have never done it. But that's what it was just 43 years ago. Like 1979. So all of us sitting here, it's most of our life or all of our life. But to these guys, 233 years of a country, that's nothing. We look at everything so short-sighted. So like, I just need to get my kids out of the 3rd grade, or whatever. And yes, we have to have those coping mechanisms we have to get to the next thing and get to the next thing. But we look at everything so short-sighted, and we look at everything with 2022 eyeballs. So when someone says a word, you think the definition is, I can't even think of one right now, but there have been so many words that have been hijacked over the course of time that now, in the dictionary or the urban dictionary or the whatever means something totally different. So you say a word in front of your kid and they say, but it doesn't even mean what, it's like the Princess Bride. I really don't think that means what you think it means, because it's been stolen, but the truth is America was founded on Judeo-Christian values. I can have that argument all day long. The things that they think about our founders are because they don't look at them with clear eyes. Does that mean that they were perfect? No, it does not. Was there error there? Yes. But were we some of the people to clear some of those errors faster than anywhere else? Still like 90-some countries that have slavery. But we're like the second after England or something to get rid of it. I might be a little off on my statistics, but it's really low down, but they constantly put that back on us. So we as parents need to educate ourselves. So our children have been hijacked by comfort and lack of courage. When my oldest was going into the 5th grade after private school, and my second child was going to 2nd, I remember the place on the road where God said to me, "The rest is history." He said, "It's time." I have 3 years left with my 3rd child. She was only 4 when I started homeschooling. I'm not sure what I'll do when I'm done, because we should never stop learning. And that has been my greatest asset with homeschooling. So the way that you start, sorry for all that, to stick it in there. I was going to do it before, but you had such a quick intro, I didn't want to jump in. So the affidavit is right here. So basically you take the affidavit and you fill it out with yours and your child's name, because you are so before me, the undersigned notary public, this day personally appeared, you put your name. To the superintendent of, you put your district. I attest that I, your name, and you are the educator. So that's how you answer these questions. And you take this to a notary, and they put their little stamp on it, and you send it in. Now, my advice would be, so what I do with mine, now that I've done it for years, so I have an evaluation, which, is that on the list? Are you talking about that later?
Kind of, I think.
Well, so at the end of the year, there's some requirements, which we'll talk about. I do a standard evaluation. I send my evaluation and my affidavit at the same time, not in the same envelope. I send them both return receipt. So it costs me like $15 to send it from the post office to whatever that street is over there.
I actually drop mine off right at the district at Fred's and ask for a receipt so that they can't say it got lost or
I do it
anything
this
crazy
way,
like that.
and then I keep my
They
receipt.
emailed me something that said that they had received my evaluation and
Yes, I get that too, but I like to have that green receipt from the post office that they sign, so that if they ever want to come back. This last year I ended up not having a copy of something that I should have, and I had sent it in, I had a receipt for it, but I forgot to make a copy. So I had to call, and she emailed me a copy. I don't like to do that kind of stuff, because this district seems to be fine. They're not, aggressive or anything. I've had no problem with this area, but you can run into people that just don't like homeschoolers. And so you can get on the radar, and you know how that is. You might have done it with a boss or a teacher, and you got on the radar, and even though 16 people just did the same thing you did, you're the one that just got called into the office or got in trouble for whatever. So it's that's why we suggest HSLDA too, is so that if that kind of stuff happens, I'm not playing those games. I want to do what is right, but I only want to do what is right. So you send your affidavit in when you start, and then like I said, I do both of mine at the same time. So like I end May 15th or so, I have them both done, and I mail them both in. Did you?
Can you use that for different states, or is that only for Pennsylvania?
No, this is a standard, I think. Oh, this is printed out, this is Pennsylvania, but if you want hslda.com,
Okay.
you can print it if you're in New York. Are you in New York?
Yeah, going to be,
Ooh, I'm sorry.
They do have more restrictions
I came
there.
so just in time.
Okay, something to make sure on your affidavit when you have it, because I've run into this, is that it has to say notarized where they want them to be notarized. I did most of our homeschooling in the King District, which was very good too. But, they required me to have the affidavit that said notary, a spot for that.
Yeah, it's here on the bottom of the last page.
Because there are different kind of affidavit forms that are very similar.
And then, I don't know if this is law. I haven't honestly looked this up, but I had one of my evaluators tell me that they would like a synopsis of what's going on. So I give them a very vague synopsis because it doesn't hurt me any. You know, like we're doing Algebra 1 this year, biology, da-da-da-da-da. That's it. You know, nothing major. And I've had it change where, you know, we didn't finish what that was, or we did something different because that didn't work out. And I have not sent them because it was not my intention to change. And my evaluation then went in with the correct information, but I didn't see, you know, there's no reason to. Were you gonna say something? Oh, all right, so affidavit, I think that's it, right? Oh, there is now this new form for Pennsylvania, they just passed a new law. You can do an unsworn declaration. This does not require a notary. It's a very simple, but on here it does say, so the subjects listed in paragraph 4 will be offered in English language. The home education program will provide the minimum of 180 days or 900 hours, or 990 from 7 to 12. So let me just say, I do 180 days, and we'll just go with that.
Alright. Do you want to go over the basic requirements? I guess you hit on quite a
Which
few
one?
of them there. For knowing basic requirements. So we talked about, so you do, in Pennsylvania, you have to have 180 days of school. You're supposed to keep a portfolio and then have your child evaluated by a certified evaluator at the end of each year. The portfolio, Tanya's portfolio is much
My portfolio
bigger
is absolutely
than
everything.
mine.
So I have learned over the years, because I've been doing it so long, every math paper, I keep a big 3-ring binder for each kid. It has dividers in it. Every time they do math, I stick it in, stick it in, stick it in. So I don't have to go and find everything like I know others that have to, or have to, you know, gather everything up. I remember sitting on the floor doing everything and my back hurting so bad. I put it all right in this book.
That's me.
And then, honestly, for one kid, it's this book, and then maybe a few books that they might write in. I try to make copies when possible so that I can resell my curriculum a lot of times. I've done this for years. I've spent thousands on readers. I use we're going to talk about that. The type of curriculum I use is, I guess it would be literature-based, which would be considered Charlotte Mason. And so I would honestly say probably thousands of books that over the first few 5, 6, 7 years of this curriculum, I spent 500 to 1,000 a year, because my kids can read throughout history in 4 different time from creation to the Middle Ages to Revolution, World War I, World War I to the present. So I have 4 big shelves, actually now I have 2, sorry, and they're separated down, but anyway, so lots of books, and yeah, how did I get on that? I'm sorry.
We were talking
I'm a
about
rambler.
portfolios.
So I just take everything, and my evaluator, as long as I facilitate it, like these books, you know, that are written in, but some people, they'll tear out 5 pages from each thing and take it. And technically, as long as they can see progression, you know, from the beginning to the middle to the end, then it's fine. I just don't feel like taking out that little bit because it's really not that much for one kid, so I just take it off.
So you don't really like make like a
Scrapbook?
you're a teacher, like a.
So I
Yes, resume.
Yeah, like a lesson plan, you just, like, that's not your.
Well, no, that's not what you take. You could do that. I mean, so now I have something that's like a calendar of the days of the week, like Monday through Friday, and it has boxes for subjects, and I put the subjects, and then how many days each thing is. So like math is 4 days a week, science is 4 days a week, you know, English is, you know, and usually we taper, like, the majority of things happen in 4 days, and then a few things happen on the 5th day. You know, but we're always doing, because we have to do 36 5-day weeks, Now, a public school will allow 10 field trip days, so, or at least that's the way I've always understood it, so.
We like to take.
I also allow 10 field trip days. If we're going to a historical place, so, that kind of stuff.
So
But
you do that and then keep like a record of all, make copies. of
I
all
write
your
that down on a
work.
calendar, like if we did something specific, I'll have a calendar for all the months. My evaluator does not look at that stuff.
Oh, okay, so it's more like what
So,
they've done, the kids have done.
What I would suggest is get in with people that know somebody. Don't just go try and find a teacher, because you'll find the one that thinks that homeschoolers are crazy. And then they'll give you this list of things they want you to do, which will be completely not the law, and then you'll be, you'll have a hard time.
Probably be overwhelmed.
So, yes, you'll be very overwhelmed. So, there are some evaluators around here that have been approved, that Megan has used. I actually use 2, and it's because I'm a little bit, I don't trust the system. So the way that I read the law to say it needs to be a certified teacher. I think it actually does say that they could be approved, though. So I understand your letter you got, and I'm not disputing that. But because it says that, I use one woman for that Erie County thing that I talked about, because she can get me that special diploma, and then I use someone else to send to the district. So that woman is probably approved, and I'm probably doing double duty, but I've done that for 7 years, and now that I'm the chapter chair for Moms for Liberty, she's wearing that shirt, and I go to all school board meetings, and I say dirty words and read nasty books and stuff, so I don't want, I kind of put myself out there a lot, so I want to do things so that I have no questions. Mine went through 2 evaluators. They have 2 diplomas. I've gone, and does that mean that they're like wicked smart? Not necessarily. I just document everything.
I do have a question, it's probably gonna sound really ignorant, but the evaluation, what is that?
All it is they look that you've done all the things that are required, like let's say for high school. Every year of high school, so high school, I could get this wrong, but I'm pretty sure. Okay, so 4 maths, 4 English, I want to say 3 science, 2 humanities or elective, history, 3, I think, government, health. These are things that have to happen between 7th grade and 12th grade. And government and health have to happen once. Those other things were every year you're doing math, every year you're doing, I think we have a teacher over there, he's hiding. So if he knows better than I do, maybe he can say. But every year you're doing math, every year you're doing English, 3 years you're doing science. So they just are checking. Pardon? I'm pretty sure it's 3 history for high school.
Okay, and then a government.
Actually,
Government is,
I'm doing this right now.
Is it 4 history?
It's 4 history, 3 math, and 3 science.
okay, that's
You
where the
have to
3s
have
are. So
geometry.
English and history are the 4s.
Are the 4s, yeah.
Science and sorry, I have it all written down.
Okay, I'm sorry, say that one more time.
History and science are 4.
Okay,
No, history and
Science
grammar
is
are
3.
4. Oh, I'm
Okay.
sorry.
and then math and science are 3?
Yes.
Yeah, but you have to have geometry.
And algebra.
And this is
So-
actually all on the HSLDA website too.
Pennsylvania requires. See, like Florida, there's no specifics. You just have a certain number of math. Pennsylvania, you have to do algebra and geometry. So it's just algebra 1 and geometry, but you have to do those 2.
Okay.
And then,
My daughter's in 6th grade this year, so that was my big.
so 1 more year. But don't stress out about high school because it's just the same. You just,
We use master books, and they actually, in their catalog, they have next to each of these, they have like 1 credit or
Right.
something. So I
That's
know
good.
those are the ones that,
that's good.
for high
They'll count for
school. I
credit.
just didn't know how many of each either.
Yeah. So, and the
So
evaluators,
what, you said what was so it's just a letter stating that they have done all the things they're supposed to do. That's all it is.
How do I print it off and I have to read them
No.
somewhere?
You find an evaluator okay? So we can tell you of some that we know. You find an evaluator and you make an appointment with them, you take your stuff to them.
Or
They
they might
look at
come to your
everything.
house.
They might come to your house.
I did mine over Zoom,
Okay, that, I don't know whether that'll always be allowed, but right now it is, so that's great. And they look at everything, check off that you've done what's required, which is just those things that are required for the year.
Yeah,
like
like certain
you're saying.
subjects, like make sure that you did math for the year, they make sure you did English
If it
for
was
the year.
3rd, 5th, or 8th grade, you have to test. So you have to get a test, and then they'll just check, yes, you did the test. But what they send to the school is no information about what your child actually did.
So you don't have to send in for doing being with your evaluator, you don't have to show them the work that they did, you just have to have your log.
You're gonna show
No,
your
you're gonna show them
evaluator,
either
but
you're
they're
gonna
not
bring
gonna give
that-
it to the
that-
school.
a synopsis. Remember I said I take everything?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's what you're taking to show. Or you're taking a lot of people take like 10 things. Like you have 50 grammar pages. You pull 10 out
That's what I
throughout
do.
the time. Okay, but I take everything because it's self-contained. So there's no reason for me to just pull things. Why? It's a waste of my time. Because I can just tote that folder and be done. So that's what I'm saying, that putting it in a book like that, like either, some of these, you write in them. If you did that, then you take that with you. Otherwise, I put it in a 3-ring binder, and then I don't have to fuss with it later. If I need to go find something, I know right where it is.
So they look at it and like give it back?
They
Yeah,
look
yeah,
at it,
they
write
don't keep
in,
your
give
book
it back, and they write a letter
It's not
that,
like you lose it.
No.
my evaluator that does my one for the school, she actually prints out a rubric of what's required, puts a check mark or an A, and that's it. So, and then we send that to the school, I do return receipt, she does delivery with a receipt. But I just never leave any room for them to say, you didn't do this, okay? But it's really not that stressful. When I was in Florida, my evaluator was a public school teacher, but his wife homeschooled their kids. So, you see that a lot, because there's obviously
It happens
something
a lot.
wrong.
Yes.
Yeah, so, that's the sane ones, then some, they just all live in the bubble together and they all think everything's great. What
My
was that?
son says he's going to 3rd. I'm not saying he won't be where he needs to be, that's our first year, like official homeschooling. What would happen if we do the whole year and I think everything's fine, and then he goes to his testing in data because he's in 3rd grade, and he doesn't pass it, or he's not where he's.
There's no passing for
There's
that test.
your scores actually don't really matter, unless they matter to you, but as far as the school goes, the district goes, they don't even see the scores.
When they get older and you want them to take the SAT, yeah, that score is gonna be seen by somebody if you want it to be for college or whatever. But right now, I'm gonna be honest with you, okay? So my oldest was 5th grade when I started homeschooling. She tested in the years she had to, and then she tested in 11th grade because I just wanted to see how she was doing, and she was willing to take the test. She was doing great, okay? My son, 3rd, 5th, 8th, yeah, that's it. I didn't even fuss with that, because remember this kid, he cooks breakfast during reading, and so there was not gonna be any making him take a test more, because first of all, I don't think that he would do good on the test, because of the way that they, just the bubble in the thing, reading it, perspective, kids are all different. And there's so much now that affects kids too, I mean, there's some that are on medication, there's some that need it, some that don't, there's all the, we could go on the vaccine, circus if we'd like to, you could argue back and forth about that, whether you're pro, anti, in the middle, but there's so many things that affect what kids do, and then we throw them all into a big pool and say, swim!
Yeah,
And when they don't, we want to blame the teacher, blame this. I understand that I'm not angry at the teachers. It's the system itself. The system is broken. It's hurting the teachers. It's hurting the kids. So All right, did we pass all the stuff?
So yeah, as far as testing goes, don't worry about it. I mean, you do have to, your child has to take the test, but the scores aren't a big deal, and the district's not even gonna see the scores,
The one
so.
that's been homeschooled all along. her scores are
I think it's mostly just to see that, like, your child is learning. It doesn't, even if they're like on the same grade level, or maybe they're a little bit below grade level, maybe they're advanced, it doesn't matter, it's just to show where they're at.
Okay, so that's
Just more go
scary.
Yeah.
I think as
Some things I just give.
as a homeschooler, when mine had to take the test,
If
it
it
was-
was oral, you know, if we were
I
just
didn't
discussing.
like it because I know how they were doing from the rest of the kids in their grade. The first, third grade, my twins, they took the test at third grade, and the one was like reading at first grade level, and I'm like almost freaking out, and then talking to other people. Now, you know, he's in 10th grade, 11th grade, and he's doing well, really well. He just didn't read. I mean, he literally just
You
went
just
more.
wasn't there yet.
And that's my
So,
youngest.
and there was nothing other than like, your mom kind of, but then I've had other people say, do not freak out about it.
So you were asking if it's the
Homeschooling is a long
PSSAs.
distance race.
There's
not
a
sprint.
list of like tests
Don't
that
freak
you
out
can
about
use.
this 6 months or
We use
this
what's
year,
called
or
the
even
CAT
this 2
test,
years.
but there's a list of them that are approved through Pennsylvania that you can use.
evaluate.
You can use the PSSA, there's the CAT, but,
I always use, I wanna say it was the Iowa.
okay. There's, I mean,
You
there's
can
a
do
list
the,
of them.
if you have, so I can't do it, you're not supposed to personally do it, like the parent. I have a 21-year-old daughter. I left the room and left my 14-year-old with her 20-year-old sister, and away we went.
I had the librarian in King give us ours. So,
You know, there's always things,
Right.
us, you know,
there's
call
something
me.
you have, there's something you have to follow and who can give the test, but, you know,
So-
it's not hard.
Homeschool,
Ours online
it-
last year.
that's a good, I think we might have done that once, I can't
And
remember for
then,
sure.
Leverage Chapel, they have an organization of homeschoolers. They have one mom who's a teacher there, and she will sit down and have all the kids do it, so.
You can do that too, I used to be involved, when that co-op was actually academic and not just field trip, I was involved in that. So if, so that's another thing, you know, if that needs to happen over here, I can't speak for Megan, but I'm pretty sure I can, that we're willing to facilitate a co-op here. You know,
Oh,
if you
yeah.
guys
I would
want
love
to,
that, actually.
you know, if you guys want to do something here, if you're preparing to do this and you wanna do it, all we gotta do is get a place to meet once a week for 3 hours, you know, and you probably all have little kids, so anything that I would teach, I would have to bring it back to the little level. I haven't been there in a while, but
You teach us.
I'm the resident history nerd, so that's usually what happens with me. When my kids were little, and probably your kids' age, we did a president's thing, and we did a program, and there was something funny about every president. So like Chester Arthur, so William Taft got stuck in a bathtub, so I'm sitting in a box, and then Chester Arthur had 80 pair of pants, so I'm throwing pants out of the box. So yeah, it was fun.
Alright. Okay, so we went over all the basic requirements and what you need to do to get started. So there's actually, you'll find, even just by doing a simple Google search, there's like homeschool styles. I'll go over just a few of them. So you have homeschoolers that consider themselves like relaxed or eclectic homeschoolers. What that means is that your mornings might be more like formal, sitting down, doing your lessons, and then afternoons might be used for like hobbies or like child-led learning. So like just letting your kiddo pick out whatever they're interested in and then going off of that. Let's see. There's the school at home approach. Honestly, like Tanya said, I mean, some people try it. We actually tried it. She said she did as well. You try to set up your house like it's a classroom and, you know, imitate what they would be doing in school, and you get burnt out really fast and overwhelmed. And I wouldn't personally recommend it, but I mean, that's a route that some people choose to go.
If you just have to be regimented or you can't do it, then that might work for you.
Yeah, it might work for you,
But, you know, I am definitely not the total loosey-goosey. I would consider Megan more of like an unschooler because she just goes and they do a science lesson out in the woods or whatever. I have not really done that. I
We
mean,
like
we've done
to do a
few-
lot of like hands-on.
We've done a few
fun.
things, but because I work, I've always had to get back to a job, so it just is it's dependent. But this year I am doing that, since I just have one at home. We're doing science journals and a experimental week,
That'll be fun.
because it's just her and I, so hopefully we don't blow anything up.
Alright, and then there's classical homeschooling. So I'm not super familiar with it, but I printed some things out. So the goal of classical homeschooling is to teach people how to learn for themselves. So to teach your child how to learn. There's 5 tools of learning known as the trivium, reason, record, research, relate, and rhetoric. And then, so with classical homeschooling, the kids will kind of work their way up through the different levels of learning. And then there's Charlotte Mason homeschooling. We actually do lean pretty heavily towards Charlotte Mason homeschooling. Basically, her philosophy is a lot of the learning comes from like really good literature and read aloud books. So like for history or geography, we might read about different stories and events that happened throughout history or different things that happened across the United States. Like next year, we're going to be learning about Lewis and Clark and kind of mapping out their journey across the U.S. And that's part of what our geography is going to be and part of what our history is going to be next year. So, you know, that's what I've found, like with Charlotte Mason homeschooling, that kids actually, well, mine do, learn a lot more from like hearing stories rather than just having to memorize dates and facts. They can kind of relate to it a little bit more instead of just having to remember this happened at this time and then they
And what's
forget
the
it a couple
purpose of
weeks
that?
later.
Pass a test? I mean, you know, the purpose of that's just to pass a test, and then nobody likes history. You know, but the point is history is got all kinds of things, you know. I never really cared for history until I started homeschooling.
Same here.
And then I actually watched the John Adams miniseries, and back then I Googled to see if the things were, today it would be DuckDuckGo, but back then I Googled everything to see, you know, Google. So then, to see if it was true, and then I read the book that the miniseries was based on, and then the rest is history. I have hundreds.
So we do a lot of storybooks, good quality literature with Charlotte Mason homeschooling, and a lot of like hands-on learning. Like she said, we might take our nature journals out on a hike and just, you know, kind of write down what we see and then go home and research what we are curious about that we've seen out in the woods that day. Do you want to go over learning styles, like
Sure.
visual, auditory?
So there are several different learning styles, but the 4 that that usually I try to look at. So visual learners prefer to use an image, maps, graphic organizers to access and understand the information. My son is a visual learner, so through the course of the 11 years, I finally figured out, I think, what each one is. So my son is definitely a visual learner. When my daughter was a senior 3 years ago, we picked a curriculum called Movies and Literature, and you watched and there were like 12 old movies. And so I bought them all, because of course that's how I am, is I find them used and I buy everything, because I apologize. When Megan asked me to do this, I'm like, absolutely, but I never in my 11 years. Now we did when they were little, down in Florida, we would get free Chick-fil-A coupons when we would go for the reading thing every week. So we did do that, and we read lots of books from the library. But I have a lot of books, I just don't necessarily come and get them from the library. So we watch these movies, and then he learned how to. You watch it once cold, then you watch it again, and you take notes, and then you write a paper on it. So by the time he was a senior, and the requirement for his Erie County diploma was an 8-page paper, we got to watch all 5 Jurassic Parks, and he wrote this. And was the paper very good? No, it was just an explanation of Jurassic Park, but it happened, and he graduated. So, visual learner, he'll come up with things because he saw it in a movie. So I try to make sure that if it's not accurate, that we talk about that, you know, because sometimes it's historic fiction. It's a time frame, but it's not really true, you know, so you have to have those conversations. So I have one visual learner. Auditory learners best understand new content through listening and speaking in situations such as lectures and group discussions. Auditory learners use repetition as a study technique and benefit from the use of mnemonic devices. I don't think I have any auditory learners, which is really sad because I've always done read alouds. You know, last year, you know, in the midst of, you know, Moms for Liberty, we've had a little flack about being book banners or whatever, which we're not. You know, it's age appropriateness of certain books in certain places, not trying to burn the book or get rid of the book. I actually have a button that says, you know, read banned books from Mark Twain's house when I went on vacation a couple years ago, you know, so that's not at all. But I read Uncle Tom's Cabin to my kids. There are a lot of ninjas in Uncle Tom's Cabin, I just want you to know. If anybody's figured that out. Okay. So a lot of people won't read those kind of books because of the words. Remember My Husband's Black? You don't use that word in my house. There are a lot of ninjas in Uncle Tom's Cabin. So every time I got to the word, it was a ninja. Okay. So read and write. Students with a strong reading writing preference learn best through words. These students may present themselves as copious note takers, avid readers, able to translate abstract concepts into words and essays. That's my oldest. So my first graduate was this type. Kinesthetic students who are kinesthetic learners best understand information through tactile, hands-on representation of information. These students are hands-on learners and learn best through figuring things out by hand, understanding how a clock works, putting one together. So I think my youngest is kinesthetic, but she's also kind of lazy, which is kind of the thing when you've been homeschooled all along and you're the last kid. You're kind of like dragging up the back, you know, like, really, do I have to do this? You know, and Mom has been constantly, for 11 years, pushing people forward, you know, so now I just kind of go along slowly with her. So those are the four: visual, auditory, read and write, kinesthetic. Can you be more than one? Yes, you can.
So next we'll talk about selecting curriculum. When choosing curriculum, first you want to keep your homeschool style in mind, which I just talked about. You can actually go online and literally Google homeschool styles, and there's even quizzes out there that you can take to try to grasp or get an idea of where you might fall. And then if you know what your child's learning style is, try to keep that in mind. If your kid has been in public schools, you might not know because the teachers have been working with your kids. So it might take some time to figure out, and that's fine too. Next, you want to decide if you want to use religious or secular curriculum, because there's a ton of curriculum out there that's going to be religious and Christian based, and then there's going to be curriculum that just doesn't deal with religion at all. So kind of knowing, where you want to go with that ahead of time is going to help you narrow it down to what curriculum you want to choose. Once you have an idea of those things, you can go to kathyduffyreviews.com. That's a website that gives reviews and overviews for most curriculum choices that are available, and they can help you. The website can help you narrow down which choices are best for you by doing like a side-by-side comparison. Super helpful. The website's been around since 1984, so it's pretty comprehensive. So curriculum can be as cheap or as expensive as you make it. There's people that homeschool for free or like very low budget. Some people, might have a bigger budget and go all in. So it's really up to you. Some budget or free ways to get curriculum would be purchasing books from thriftbooks.com, utilizing websites like Nikki Truesdell and the Frugal and Free Homeschool. freedomhomeschooling.com is a free curriculum, and Easy Peasy All-in-One Homeschool is also a free curriculum. And then there's the Homeschool Buyers Co-op. If you go on there, they have tons of curriculum at discounted prices. Another low-cost option is to go on Facebook Marketplace and look for used curriculum. A lot of people, like Tanya said she actually did, they might not use all the worksheets directly out of the book. They might make copies and then sell it later on. So there's tons of used curriculum out there too that can save you some money. Also, there's the Power Library. I don't know if anyone's heard of it, but I think, is it just powerlibrary.com? I haven't used it too much.
We have it on our website, so if you visit the library website, you'll find a link, and there's a wealth of information there.
Right, so there's all kinds of, like, different grade levels and different subjects and everything too. So you don't have to have a huge budget if you don't to be able to homeschool. You can actually homeschool for free or for very low budget if you need to. Let's see. And we actually brought some curriculum along. Both Tanya and I, if you guys just want to kind of browse and look through it, just to kind of get an idea or a feel for what exactly it is. So something that I didn't know at first when I was starting out homeschooling, and I learned that was super helpful, was you don't have to know everything or even be like, you know, a certified teacher in order to homeschool. When you get the curriculum, the lessons, you know, you have the beginning that shows all the different lessons you'll go through, and then when you get to the lessons, everything's broken down and laid out for you. So, you know, everything's there for you step by step, and then certain curriculums even have like video lessons to kind of give you like a little bit extra help there.
You may have to change once in a while. I think Megan's done that.
Yeah.
I did it bad. I changed math like all the time because I was trying to find the one, you know, so it's challenging to find the right one for your kid. You have to kind of figure that out.
Yeah, you might get a curriculum and then you decide that it's just not really working for you and end up changing. I mean, it happens. Let's see. So now that we're ready to homeschool and we went over everything that we need to do, I want to talk about how important it is to make sure you as a parent have support and encouragement. It's like super important. Having a group of parents there to support you or give you encouragement or guidance will go a long way in helping things run smoothly. So maybe you already know a couple of parents or moms that homeschool. Definitely keeping in contact with them and just being there for each other is important. Maybe you don't know anyone, you can go on, even like on Facebook I was talking about earlier, go on the search bar and you can find co-ops and homeschool groups in different areas. Co-ops, in case anyone doesn't know what a co-op is, it's basically a bunch of homeschool families that get together. Maybe it's, you know, once a week, every other week, once a month, whatever. They might do lessons together, so say, you know, you have different parents that have, you know, different skill sets that they want to teach their children. And then, so they might act as the teacher and teach a group of kids. There's those kind of co-ops. There's some co-ops where they get together and they just go on field trips once a month. There's co-ops that get together just to go hiking and do like, you know, nature-based activities. So just, you know, making sure that you have support.
Somebody started every one of those, you know, so
Yeah.
the one over in Allegheny is co-op is, field trips only. There's one in Jamestown, that is a lot of things, and a friend of a family member of hers goes to that one on Fridays, but with gas prices getting what they are, whether that'll continue, I don't know what she'll do, but,
Yeah.
you know, but there's always options. I've lived here for 7 years. I was part of that one in Allegheny until it stopped doing anything academic, and there was actually a small one over in Smethport. I was part of that one as well, and they both folded. So we definitely, you know, what you find a lot of times is because as a parent, you know, as the mom or the parent, you're responsible now for the kid's education. So you start to feel overwhelmed and then you don't get outside your house. But really, you need that even just for the camaraderie. You know, even just so that you guys can, iron can sharpen iron and you can communicate, you know, I mean, because if you just, I mean, I like to stay in my house. I got a lot of books, I'm good. But you need to get outside of the house and do other things. And a lot of times when you do that, you might have a parent that can teach a certain thing that you couldn't. You know, so I, you know, would teach different credit-bearing classes for the high school students on Fridays, and then they would do reading or whatever up until, and then we'd do the rest of it on Friday. So they could get a full credit by coming to my once-a-week class by doing the reading previously, you know, depending upon it. And then that takes something off of you that you don't have to do because it got done in the co-op.
Something too, we're kind of more rural than if you were closer to one of the bigger cities, but if you like to travel, like Tanya and I, both, we like to do it too. Whenever we travel, I'd always find something to do that was educational for the kids. But a lot of these places will have homeschooling days. We happen to, by chance, on the living near their fort, and they had a homeschooling day just for homeschoolers. We, or like the zoos are always having classes for, of course, we don't live close enough to do a weekend class with them, but always do your research on
If you
those
did
things.
get the HSLDA,
The
you'll get
nature
a card,
centers.
and then that's like a teacher card. So
Yeah.
for a lot of places, you'll get discounts.
Yes. Barnes and Noble has you can sign up for their card, teacher's card as a homeschooler.
So, if you're on Facebook, there's a couple of support groups that I'd recommend. There's one called Pennsylvania Homeschoolers, Homeschooling Supermoms, Working Homeschool Mom Club, and then if there's any groups that you can join that are like specific to your curriculum, I've always found they're super helpful too. So like we use a curriculum called The Good and the Beautiful for math. So I joined a group that's specifically for people that use The Good and the Beautiful, and like everyone, just gets on there and talks about the curriculum, and maybe somebody read a lesson but they didn't fully understand it, and they'll just post on there, hey, can somebody help out with this? That kind of thing, super helpful. Let's see. So we don't have any co-ops actually in Bradford. It seems like there's interest in homeschooling in Bradford, so I'd be happy to get together with some parents and
We'll take
start
everybody's
one.
name and number
Yeah.
and email when we leave, and then
We actually have, 5 families meeting up on Wednesday
Oh,
at 2, so if anybody wants to come to that, you're more than welcome to.
yeah, that's exciting.
So just talk to me, but, yeah, and those families, 2 of them are sitting next to me. I think they would all be interested in figuring out something.
So I know of a couple of homeschool clubs or co-ops in like the Bemis Point and Jamestown areas. You can go right on Facebook to find them so that you can join and then figure out where their meetups are and different things like that. There are, let's see, Happy Homeschool Club. They're based out of Bemis Point, New York. Western New York Wildlings Nature Adventures. They're based in Chautauqua County. They go on a lot of hikes and nature field trips and that type of thing. There's the Hiking Club for Homeschoolers of Western New York. Jamestown Leah Christian Co-op, and the Liberty Co-op, which is based out of Warren. So one more thing I wanted to touch on is there's like some books that I read and podcasts that I listened to, even like going into my 3rd year, which I guess I'm still pretty new to homeschooling compared to Tanya.
still a rookie.
I'm still a rookie. I like listening to podcasts and reading books that are about homeschooling. It's super encouraging to help you along your way. So some non-religious books that I'm highly recommended. We're a Christian family, so I read Christian homeschool books, but I asked around in some of the other groups that I'm in. And some of the like non-religious or secular books that came highly recommended by others are The Call of the Wild and Free by Ainsley Arment, The Well-Adjusted Child by Rachel Gatherful, and The Brave Learner by Julie Bogard. Some of my personal favorites that are written from a Christian point of view are The Unhurried Homeschooler by Dorinda Wilson, Homeschool Bravely by Jamie Erickson, Teaching from Rest by Sarah McKenzie, and For the Children's Sake by Susan Schaefer McCauley. Arithmetics for Parents by Ron Harani is a great teaching tool. So it kind of walks you through how to be a teacher, to teach everything from elementary through middle school math. Let's see, where was I? And then DK Books Help Your Kids with Language Arts is a great tool for English. And then a few podcasts that I like to listen to are Schoolhouse Rocks, The Homeschool Revolution. They not only have a podcast covering all sorts of topics, but they have a movie that you can stream, or you can buy the DVD that kind of it's just a super encouraging movie for people that are starting out homeschooling, or even if you're, a couple years in. They also have a bunch of resources on their website, including a 70-page homeschool survival guide that's offered for free. Another good one is the Homeschool Mom podcast by Janelle Knutson. And because we lean towards the Charlotte Mason education, I really love A Delectable Education and Simply Charlotte Mason with Sonia Schaefer. Ken Robinson TED Talks are super useful and encouraging as well. Do you have any that you would recommend? I mean, yours are going to be much different than mine.
Yeah, I don't listen to any podcasts about homeschooling. I listen to podcasts about the world. And books. I have read a few recently. Shoot, I didn't pull those out of my stash. When we lived in Florida, I always went to the FPEA convention, which is like the biggest homeschool convention in the country, or at least it used to be. And so you had hands-on be able to touch a lot of the curriculums and stuff, and then you could make your decisions. So I always had a lot of, a lot of options. As you can see, Megan's stuff is all very pretty. My stuff is not necessarily all very pretty, they've started to do things very colorful and, fun. That always hasn't been the case, so. But I did bring this, Rainbow Resource Center is a homeschool resource, and it's I think over 50 is always free shipping. Anything I have to buy new, I buy from them because I'm pretty sure, I'm not positive, but I thought that they were a family company.
Yeah, they always seem to have the best prices on things. So.
They generally do. When I buy used, I use Abe books when I'm buying like just reading books, if you're looking for Tom Sawyer or whatever. Abe books, you can find almost anything for about $4 with shipping.
eBay, good.
eBay can be good too, yeah. I used to have to do this whole list of checking where the cheapest book, what the cheapest one was, because I had so many to buy. I personally listen to Wall Builders. They're a history. So David Barton has the biggest collection of American history paraphernalia of anyone in the country, over I think 100,000 original documents and so forth. So they wrote this book here. Wall Builders is a podcast that they do. It doesn't always necessarily talk about, it does always talk about education, it's always talking about history, but it's not specifically geared to. There is a conservative homeschool. Ted Lamb does a Facebook group called Conservative Teachers. I see a lot of conversations on there that are actually very interesting to like their understanding of what's going on in schools and so forth. There's a lot of scuttlebutt going on between people that have been in that for a long time and are coming out, or, so there's just lots of information to be gleaned so that you can make your own decisions and get your own perspective of how you want to handle things, My husband told me I'd stop talking so much, I need to let you talk, so he must have found Facebook.
He's on there.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Okay. So we're actually just going to wrap things up with a Q&A. If you guys have any questions, we can most likely answer them. If I can't, Tanya probably can. Does anyone have any questions?
Sorry, I was joking.
Yeah, it's okay. Go ahead.
So I was, because of everything that happened, like no secret, the whole COVID thing with public school. I originally had my son in the learning center. That was great, and nothing going on that. So we did public school for like a week. Realized it wasn't okay. So I yanked him out. We did the cyber school thing. That was just because I didn't know what else to do. Like I didn't know what my other options were. So now I've been looking online, and one program I keep finding is master books. So it's like, do you know what
Actually, brought some master books.
Master Books is tons of different things, so I'm pretty sure this logic curriculum is Master Books.
I've heard that's really good.
That history, I would, any parent, teach your kids logic.
Oh yeah.
In today's climate, not you know, having somebody tell, it's that whole thing about why. You know, or, you know, when Michael Jordan tells you that the t-shirt is great because it has no tag or whatever, you know, why is it a big deal that Michael Jordan tells me about a t-shirt?
Mine
He
was
should be
born that
telling
way.
Huh?
My kid was born that way, he won't why.
That's good. You know, but, you know, fallacies, you know, illegitimate authority, false precision, you know, straw man. We need to learn what these people are saying to us and if it really makes any sense. Or they just sound really good because they sound confident, and then you're like, okay.
So were you wondering just like about master books in general, or if it's a legitimate curriculum, or?
Well, do you think that would be like a good place to start
Yes.
for a third grader?
I think it is. That's actually, we used master books for our first 2 years for English, math, and history. And the lessons are a bit shorter and easier to follow. So I think, you know, that's important so that you don't get overwhelmed when you're first starting out, because it's really easy to get overwhelmed when you're first starting out.
I used master books, this history. Did you buy that one from me? Or did I sell it to somebody else?
Mm-mm.
I don't remember.
No,
But anyway, so there's a 1, 2, and a 3 for this, and they're technically up to like 6th grade or something. But I supplement my high schoolers with this because it's good information.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I have 3, I think. I think I still have 2 and 3 because I'm finishing 2 and then going into 3. But like I said, all my curriculum is book-based. And I have a full curriculum that would have everything in it, but I got away from using all of that, and I kind of just pull stuff in the same time category so that we're continuing. I really like that. You know, like I said, I like this. Everything that I've got, Master Books connects, and this may not be your intention, but Master Books, I'm pretty sure, is a Christian curriculum.
Yeah, they
And
are.
they connect to Ken Ham down at the Art Encounter. So and I love him. I mean, you know, we can have the fight about 6,000 years or millions of years another day, but, you know, his information is great. And so, yeah, he promotes Master Books. I don't know that it's necessarily him, but.
Well, because master books comes from Answers in Genesis, and he works
Correct.
with Answers in
I was
Genesis.
gonna
So.
say, the apologetics for the kids at this age is all from his
Mhm.
Answers in Genesis
And,
books.
and since you brought that up, apologetics. So apologetics, at least the way I understand it, I would have to look up the definition of the word. It's basically like
Being able to defend your faith.
it's apologetics can be of anything. That's why I wanted to get a clear.
I don't know, I just want to counter the stuff in the